A true sign of genius in any endeavor is when you don't have a surname. You know, the other day I was talking to Socrates and he said, you know, Eli's dad, the unexamined life is not worth living. What the heck does that mean? Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, we inspire. And we are getting help inspiring today from, we're in the middle of a series, How Successful People Think by John C. Maxwell. Once again, I want to remind you that this is a long series, but it goes into detail on different ways that people think. And it's a different perspective than one that I produced earlier, what I consider to be my best work, which is the Owner's Manual for Your Brain. You'll see a connection for that down in the, the space below there. And you can click on that. I strongly recommend you watch it, but hearing things from different angles makes things click. So that's why I'm presenting this to you, because it's my considered opinion that the major difference between the 95% crowd and the 5% crowd is the way that people think. And let's get back to Socrates. Let's get right into it. The unexamined life is not worth living. What does that mean? It means you have to reflect on the things that went on, reflective thinking. To doubt everything or to believe everything are two equally convenient solutions. Both dispense with the necessity of reflection. And that's Jules Henri Poincaré. The pace of our society does not encourage reflective thinking. Let's be candid. Most people would rather act than think. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a person of action. I have a very high energy and I like to see things accomplished, but I'm also a reflective thinker. Reflective thinking is like the crock pot of the mind. It encourages your thoughts to simmer until they're done. As I go through this process, my goal is to reflect so that I might learn from my successes and mistakes, discover what I should try to repeat, and determine what I should change. It's always a valuable exercise. By mentally visiting past situations, you can think with greater understanding. First, what are some of the things that reflective thinking does for you? It gives you true perspective. When you reflect, you're able to put an experience into perspective. You're able to evaluate its timing, and you're able to gain a new appreciation for things that before went unnoticed. Most people are able to recognize the sacrifices of their parents or other people only when they become parents themselves. That's the kind of perspective that comes with reflection. You know, I remember when I was a kid that I used to hate it when particularly my dad, when I said, why do I have to do that? Because I said so, that's why. And I made a promise that when I was a parent, I would never say that to you, Eli, and I never have. But I'll tell you the truth. I've wanted to say it 1,000,000 times, but I made myself that promise, and I'm not going to say it. Second, reflective thinking gives emotional integrity to your thoughts. You know, in life, few people have good perspective in the heat of an emotional moment. Most individuals who enjoy the thrill of an experience try to go back and recapture it without first trying to evaluate it. Likewise, those who survive a traumatic experience usually avoid similar situations at all costs, which sometimes ties them into emotional knots. Reflective thinking enables you to distance yourself from the intense emotions of particularly good or particularly bad experiences, and to see them with fresh eyes. You can see the thrills of the past in the light of truth and logic. That process can help a person to stop carrying around a bunch of negative emotional baggage. Any feeling that can stand up to the light of truth and can be sustained over time has emotional integrity and is therefore worthy of your mind and heart. One of my personal rules is that whenever I get into a big snit with somebody, is to not say something that's going to come back and haunt me you know, speak too quickly. That, you know, I don't like it when the fastest distance is the distance between the brain and the mouth. You need to give yourself some time. So when I get into it with somebody that I respect, that I want to maintain the relationship with, what I always do is give myself at least overnight to reflect on the situation and put myself in their shoes. Does that make sense? Reflection is so important because you don't want to say things on an emotional level that are going to come back to haunt you, that you're going to say, boy, I wish I never said that. And by the way, the modern equivalent of that is pressing the send button on the internet, isn't it? Third point, reflective thinking increases your confidence in decision making. Have you ever made a snap judgment and later wondered, did I do the right thing? Everybody has. Reflective thinking can help you to diffuse that doubt. It also gives you confidence for the next decision. Once you've reflected on an issue, you don't have to repeat every single step of the thinking process again when you're faced with that same scenario. You've got mental road markers from having been there before, and that compresses and speeds up thinking time, and it gives you confidence. And over time, it can also strengthen your intuition. You know, what this reminds me of is when I was managing an office in San Diego, and we were doing pretty well. We were excited. You know, we were making much more than our quota. We were winning awards and so on. And my mentor, Bob Anderson, was not mentoring me in person, but was, you know, over the phone, you know, how's everything going and so on and so forth. And then one day I told him about, you know, this one woman that was one of my top people that was starting to get a really bad negative attitude. And this went on for several days. And finally Bob said to me, hey, get rid of her. I said, what? She's one of my top producers. She's one of my leaders. He said, get rid of her. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen is that attitude is going to permeate throughout the whole office. Well, I learned that costly lesson because I didn't get rid of her. The next time something like that happened, I made darn sure to get rid of the bad seed before it sprouted. You know, so I had that experience once. I was not going to have it happen to me again. Reflective thinking clarifies the big picture. When you engage in reflective thinking, you can put ideas and experiences into a more accurate context. Reflective thinking encourages us to go back and spend time pondering what we've done and what we've seen. If a person who loses his job reflects on what happened, he may see a pattern of events that led to his dismissal. He'll better understand what happened, why it happened, and what things were his responsibility. If he also looks at the incidents that occurred afterwards, he may realize that in the larger scheme of things, he's better off in his new position because it better fits his skills and desires. Without reflection, it can be very difficult to see that picture. For me, that happened, you know, I've been divorced twice, and when you go through that, you tend to reflect. And you stop and you learn and you think about things and you say, you know what, the next time I get married, I'm not going to make that same mistake. Well, I've had two experiences, so I'm just waiting for the next time if there is going to be one. And I've learned a lot, and you know, just that reflection helps you the next time. Reflective thinking takes a good experience and makes it a valuable experience. When you were just starting out in your career, did it seem that few people were willing to give someone without experience an opportunity? You remember those days? At the same time, could you see people who had been on their jobs 20 years and they did their jobs very, very poorly? If so, that probably frustrated you. I know it frustrated me. Experience alone does not add value to a life. It's not necessarily experience that's valuable. It's the insight people gain because of their experience. I told you the story about when I was my junior year in high school, and we're playing the second game of the season, and I'm inexperienced relative to the other people that are playing. I'm the only one that wasn't, one of the big players the year before. And at the end of the game, with like 3 or 4 seconds left in the game, it's a tie score, or the other team's ahead by 1. I get the ball, and instead of taking the shot, I made the pass. And everybody said, "Why didn't you shoot it? You got to shoot it." And I learned from that situation 2 things. One, I learned, hey, you got to shoot it when everything's on the line. And second, I learned that if I had been prepared for that in practice, if the coach had gone through that scenario, which is a relatively common scenario in a basketball game, that I would not have made that mistake. I would have been ready for that. So my reflective thinking, when I became the coach, that every single practice we went through that scenario, so that when my kids got into that situation, they at least took the shot. We didn't win every game, but you can't score unless you take the shot. Mark Twain said, and I quote, "We should be careful to get out of an experience all the wisdom that's in it." Not like the cat that sits down on a hot stove lid. Well, she'll never sit down on a hot stove lid again, and that's well. But also, she will never sit down on a cold one either, unquote. So you have to reflect on your experiences. An experience becomes valuable when it informs or equips us to meet new experiences. Reflective thinking helps you to do that. Next time we get together, since we're a how-to channel, we're going to go over how to do your reflective thinking. Once again, big shout out John C. Maxwell, How Successful People Think. Always remember, don't ration the passion, fashion the passion. I'm Eli's dad.